Alright, Christy, when we left off, we were reading about how the assistant to the king was reaching down the little baby with a pair of tongs. So on to chapter 4 and 5, but not 6 because they're long chapters. So chapter 4. Where is she? One fine summer day, a month after these, her first adventures, during which time she had been very carefully watched, the princess was lying on the bed in the queen's own chamber, fast asleep. One of the windows was open, for it was noon, and the day was so sultry that the little girl was wrapped in nothing less ethereal than slumber itself. The queen came into the room, and not observing the baby was on the bed, opened another window. A frolicsome fairy wind, which had been watching for a chance of mischief, rushed in at once to the window, and taking its way over the bed where the child was lying, caught her up, and rolling and floating her along like a piece of flue or dandelion seed, carried her with it through the opposite window and away. The queen went downstairs quite ignorant of the loss she had herself occasioned. When the nurse returned, she supposed that her majesty had carried her off, and dreading a scolding, delayed making inquiry about her. But hearing nothing, the queen grew uneasy, and went at length to the queen's boudoir, where she found her majesty. "Please, your majesty, shall I take the baby?" said she. "Where is she?" asked the queen. "Please forgive me, I know what was wrong." "What do you mean?" said the queen, looking grave. "Oh, don't frighten me, your majesty," exclaimed the nurse, clasping her hands. The queen saw that something was amiss, and fell down in a faint. That was fast. The nurse rushed about the palace, screaming, "My baby! My baby! My baby!" Everyone ran to the queen's room, but the queen could give no orders. They soon found out, however, that the princess was missing, and in a moment the palace was like a beehive in a garden. And in 1 minute more the queen was brought to herself by a great shout and a clapping of hands. They had found the princess fast asleep under a rose bush, to which the elvish wind Puff had carried her off, finishing its mischief by shaking a shower of red rose leaves all over the little white sleeper. Startled by the noise the servants made, she woke, and with furious glee scattered the roses in all directions like a shower of spray in the sunset. She was watched more and more carefully after this, no doubt, yet it would be endless to relate all the odd incidents resulting from this peculiarity of the young princess. But there never was a baby in a house, not to say in a palace, that kept the household in so much constant good humour, or at least below stairs. If it was not easy for her nurses to hold her, this she made neither their arms nor their hearts ache, and she was so nice to play ball with. And there's a picture on this page of the baby floating around like babies do. Keep reading. There was positively no danger of letting her fall. They might throw her down or knock her down or push her down, but they couldn't let her down. It is true, they might let her fly into the fire or the coal or through the window, but none of these accidents has happened yet. If you heard peals of laughter resounding from some unknown region, you might be sure enough of the cause. Going down the kitchen or the room, you would find Jane and Thomas and Robert and Susan, all in sum, playing at ball with the little princess. She was a ball herself, and did not enjoy it less for it. Away she went flying from one another, screeching with laughter, and the servants loved the ball itself better than a game. But they had to take some care how they threw her, for if she received an upward direction, she would never come down without being fetched. Chapter 5. What is to be done? But above stairs it was different. One day, for instance, after breakfast, the king went to his counting house to count out his money. The operation gave him no pleasure. "To think," said he to himself, "that every one of these gold sovereigns weighs 1/4 of an ounce, and my real-life flesh-and-blood princess weighs nothing at all." And he hated his gold sovereigns as they lay with a broad smile of self-satisfaction all over the yellow faces. The queen was in the parlour eating bread and honey. With the second mouthful she burst out crying and could not swallow it. The king heard her sobbing, glad of anyone, but especially the queen, to quarrel with. He clashed his gold sovereigns in his money box, clasped his crown on his head, and rushed to the parlour. Ooh, excuse me. Ham sandwiches do that to a person. "What is this all about?" exclaimed he. "What are you crying for, queen?" "I can't eat it," said the queen, looking ruefully at the honey pot. "No wonder," retorted the king. "You've eaten your breakfast, 2 turkey eggs and 3 anchovies." "Oh, but that's not it," sobbed her majesty. "It's my child, my child." "Well, what's the matter with your child? She's neither up the chimney nor down the draw well. Just hear her laughing." Yet the king could not help a sigh, which he turned into a cough, saying, "It is a good thing to be light-hearted, I am sure, whether it should be ours or not. But it is a bad thing to be light-headed," answered the queen, looking in the prophetic soul far into the future. "'Tis a good thing to be light-handed," said the king. "'Tis a bad thing to be light-fingered," answered the queen. "'Tis a good thing to be light-footed," said the king. "'Tis a bad thing," began the queen, but the king interrupted her. "In fact," he said, with the tone of one who had concluded an argument in which he had only imaginary opponents, and in which, therefore, he had come off triumphant. "In fact, it is a good thing altogether to be light-bodied." "But it is a bad thing altogether to be light-minded," retorted the queen, who was beginning to lose her temper. This last answer quite discomfited his majesty, who turned on his heel and betook himself to his counting house again, but he was not halfway towards it when the voice of the queen overtook him. "And it is a bad thing to be light-haired," screamed she, determined to have more last words now that the spirit was roused. The queen's hair was black as night, and the king had been, and his daughter's was golden. Oh, the queen's hair was black as night, and the king's had been, and his daughter's was golden as morning. But it was not this reflection on his hair that arrested him. It was the double use of the word light. For the king had hated all witticisms, and punning especially. Oh, jeez. And besides, he could not tell whether the queen meant light-haired or light-aired. For why might she not aspire her vowels? Why might she not aspirate her vowels when she was exasperated herself? As he turned upon the other heel and rejoined her, she looked angry still, but because she knew that she was guilty, or, which was much the same, knew he thought so. "My dear queen," he said, "duplicity of any sort is exceedingly objectionable between married people of any rank, not to say kings and queens, and the most objectionable form of duplicity can assume is that of punning." "There," said the queen. "I never made a jest, but I broke it in the making. I am the most unfortunate woman in the world." She looked so rueful that the king took her in his arms, and they sat down to consult. "Can you bear this?" said the king. "No, I can't," said the queen. "Well, what is to be done?" said the king. "I'm sure I don't know. But you might you not try an apology?" "To my old sister, you suppose you mean?" said the king. "Yes," said the queen. "Well, I don't mind," said the king. So he went the next morning to the house of the princess, and making very humble apology, begged her to undo the spell. But the princess declared with a grave face that she knew nothing of it at all. Her eyes, however, shone pink, which was a sign that she was happy. She advised the king and queen to have patience, and to mend their ways. The king returned disconsolate. The queen tried to comfort him. "Well, we will wait till she is older. She may then be able to suggest something herself. She will know at least how she feels and explain things to us." "But what if she could marry?" exclaimed the king in sudden consternation at the idea. "Well, what of it?" rejoined the queen. "Just think, if she were to have children, in the course of 100 years the air might be full of floating children as of gossamers in autumn." "That sounds really pretty." "That is no business of ours," replied the queen. "Besides, by the time they will have learned to take care of themselves." A sigh was the king's only answer. He would have consulted the court physicians, but he was afraid they would try experiments upon her. And tomorrow we will continue reading Chapter 6, She Laughs Too Much. I don't think it's really possible, but I love you dearly. I'll be home soon. Sleep well, keep calm, find a llama, and carry him. I love you, Christy. Good night.